Hey there, Film Buds. Welcome back to the Film Buds podcast. I'm your host, Paul.
And I'm Lauren.
And we are now in our fourth week of... Our fourth week? Yes, our fourth week of Hispanic Heritage Month.
Woo!
It's a special September. We've got 5 weeks. Normally this would be when we would wrap up a theme. You know, It's usually about 4 weeks and it's out. But no, this is now our second to last one. We're doing another one next week. Yeah, it's been going really well. I've been enjoying it. Dear, how have you been enjoying it thus far?
Oh, it's been a great run. I've been, it's always fun to go down the rabbit hole of a different culture, and experience the world through a different lens. And so all of these movies and these directors have been just a lot of fun and really unique perspectives to get to immerse oneself in something new. Especially, with movies like the one that we're going to talk about today, it's very much the lens is very obvious of who it is,
Yeah.
It's people talking about themselves and their own perspectives,
No, for sure. Absolutely. So, with Hispanic Heritage Month, I wanted to really touch on a lot of different things since we were doing the whole month, not just an episode in September and an episode in October. And so I decided to really reach out to a lot of different things, and finishing up some of the Guillermo library that we hadn't watched yet was a good way to go. I wanted to watch one of Alfonso's like his big sort of masterpiece film with Ruben Salazar. I thought I wanted to do something documentary. I wanted to bring something interesting forward, and I thought that his story was so particularly interesting. And then with this, with our film today, Retablo, I thought that it was a really interesting opportunity because it's essentially about some of the Quechua people, and it is entirely in the Quechua, one of the several Quechua dialects of South America. And I thought that it would be really interesting to go and do something that's all about these, this father and this son who sort of live in this very particular world that is, a remnant of traditional Southern American indigenous and folk culture, but also infused with, very devout Catholicism and that sort of thing. And so I thought that it would be really interesting to go and travel down this. I sort of first started hearing about the Quechua people and that sort of thing in college. And I found it very, very fascinating, very interesting. Did you have any sort of familiarity with this sort of culture existing still in the world?
No, I was actually going to ask you, one, how to pronounce that word, so thank you for that. It's pronounced Quechua, fantastic. It's got more letters in it than my sad little English brain could handle. And I was gonna ask you what language they were speaking. So two birds, one stone, right here and now. I always come to Film Buds when I want to know the deets on random things that I didn't know before. And this was one of them for me. 'Cause, I watched that entire movie and was like, no, this definitely isn't Spanish. But we're in South America. And I just, wasn't on the level. But that's okay. Every horse crosses the finish line eventually.
That's right, you're here now.
That's right.
So...
Thank goodness.
But no, so... it was a really interesting opportunity, but then again, it also goes back to, Catholicism. Retablo is a type of art form that has its roots in Catholic art.
Copy.
And it doesn't have to be specifically Catholic. It typically just sort of means like a sort of altarpiece, that is just above the altar or behind it. Typically some sort of large, elaborate structure or a paneled door thing or something like that.
Copy.
So, something like this for a particularly ornate example.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess also, but it made me, when I saw what they were doing in the movie, think of something else, particularly with Catholic art as well, that we'll get into later. But I guess without any further ado, we should go ahead and start jumping ahead and getting on into this bad boy. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So for a little bit of more specific background, this particular film takes place in Peru, which has the largest population of Quechua people existing. But the region sort of, or the sort of countries that region spans, that include Quechua people, includes Bolivia, Ecuador, Argentina, Colombia, and Chile. And they typically do also, a lot of Quechua people do also speak Spanish, some. Certainly not all, but a good number of them typically are bilingual, because they usually end up interacting with the Spanish-speaking world.
Yeah.
And it's a very complicated history, that goes all the way back to the Incas and that sort of thing. There's a particular Quechua dialect, because that's the other thing. Each of these people also have their different dialects. So, for example, so the Inga people speak Inga Quechua, which is their particular brand of the Quechua dialect.
Okay.
And there is a particular dialect that is still spoken today that has its direct links to the Inca language.
Copy. Okay.
So that's sort of how far back these languages and cultures go.
Cool.
And they also, of course, are tied to this very particular folk art tradition as well, including things like, elaborate pottery, weaving, but then, of course, the things like the retablos. And so that's a little bit of background on that concept specifically. Our film, Retablo, came out in 2017. It was directed by Alvaro Delgado Aparicio. It stars Magali Solier, Amiel Cayo, and Junior Behar. And it was written, of course, by Alvaro Delgado Aparicio and Hector Galvez. And the plot is Segundo Pacar wants to become a master storybox maker just like his father to carry on with the family legacy. And I guess without any further ado, I'll go ahead and turn it on over to you. Dear, what did you think of Retablo?
I thought that this movie was really interesting, just on a lot of different levels. Starting out with the art itself, I guess I'll take the whole bite first. Wow. I loved the fact that this movie kind of had this almost like Wes Anderson approach to like presenting the retablos to us. There would be times when we just wouldn't be able to see it until the final reveal, when the people got to see their retablo. It was finally presented to us, the audience, for the first time, you know. And I think that that's, you know, such a good way of presenting this kind of concept to us. And also just the kind of livelihood that these people had. I really found it fascinating watching, you know, these people just live their day-to-day lives in Peru, you know, with their kind of like stone houses, and like this family lived on like a farm, you know. They had sheep and they grew vegetables and things like that, but then they also had this whole, you know, I guess main business that was the father's artisan, you know, his, that they would sell his art.
Yeah, his folk art.
And I just it was, you know, because I guess living in the States, I've lived in big cities. I've never lived really in rural areas before. The furthest, I guess, out of the city I've ever lived is the suburbs, and that's where it stops. You know, I've never, at least you got to live on Farm Town Road or whatever, you know. I've never even been that far out. But there really just isn't like a lot of like farmland like that, like sweeping farmland in the states that I've lived in.
Mm-hmm.
So just this, you know, very self-sustaining life that these people had, and, you know, trying to I guess dive into this other part of the world and what their day-to-day life is, was just a fascinating journey. And also this movie was just so beautiful as well. The story is really impactful, and they touch on a lot of interesting topics that you're just not expecting a little movie about art in Peru with the Quechua people to talk about. You know, you're just not expecting it. And I think that that's also just, you know, a total gem as well. And like, obviously not everything that they touch on is like happy. A lot of it is pretty sad, honestly. It's just, you know, because of where they are economically. But I didn't know where this movie was going to go. And I was intrigued by these characters. And I thought that all the acting was phenomenal. And getting to hear this language that I've never heard before was just, it kind of reminded me of watching, the Santa one, the Christmas one.
Yeah.
You know, just getting to completely immerse myself in something that was just completely foreign in the best kind of way.
No, absolutely. No, I completely agree with everything you said. I think I didn't necessarily know what to expect going into this movie. I knew, because I read a different plot description than this initially. And I knew that it was about the plot description that I had read earlier when I initially decided to do this movie had been like, a boy and his father deal with like homophobia and masculinity in like rural Peru. Was kind of like one of the plots that I had read somewhere online that had sold me on this movie, and I was like, okay.
And this one was like a father passes on his traits to his son who wants to follow in his footsteps. Mm-hmm. Like it's the same, but they're both correct, but
very different sides of the story are being addressed here.
Yeah. I guess it really depends on your audience, you know?
Yeah. And so that was kind of what I was expecting going into it, whatever that entailed, which, like, obviously it hit that mark, mm-hmm. very firmly. But I had nothing else sort of to ground myself in mm-hmm. with it. I knew a little bit about the people and the culture, but not overly much. And so to your point, it was fascinating to see not just how they were living personally, but that in the sort of main town nearest them, the main community that they were a part of, had a kind of almost like early, American communities where, like, the police and the fire department were like things that you sort of paid into. He's talking about how that's why I like pay in for the the neighborhood security, and they're wanting to get a few more guys, to cover a few more shifts, and it was so fascinating to see this town operating in this very particular way. And again, that also goes back to what you had said earlier at the start of the episode about the importance of authority and authorship, being given to someone familiar with the people, the community, that perspective, and being allowed to vocalize that in a fully authentic way. And I think that this movie manages to, through that, end up also being the reason that it creates such a beautiful portrait of human emotion and fragility and frailty as well.
Yeah, it, because also I think that movies like this can be very, I guess, humanizing as a word. Connecting as well. Our experiences are all the same.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if you really boil it down, it doesn't matter where you come from. We all wake up every day and we are all affected by the world around us in whatever way that means. And there's, only so many ways of truly experiencing something. That's why film can get it so on the nose of how somebody should react to a certain thing, is because we've all been there. We've all reacted like that to something at least once. And so, regardless of even knowing the language, I could have probably watched this movie without the subtitles and completely understood what was going on, just because of the fact that I was completely connected with it. I knew exactly who these characters were, and I really enjoyed our main character, Segundo. I thought that the kid who played him was truly phenomenal, and I had never experienced, I guess, this kind of like anger before, or like where it comes from, or but watching it here, it was truly a fascinating experience to just watch this kid, like, really have no one to talk to, and B, just kind of have to like suck it up a little bit, and like he doesn't really want to. He starts to have like this rebellious phase out of nowhere because one thing triggers him in a negative way, and then he just kind of takes it out on the world, and it's it's completely human and normal and natural, and also truly sad. And I think that he comes back around, and like I think that that's the lesson, like that everyone needed to learn in the movie that he gets. And I think that it's just a truly touching film. Honestly, I keep thinking about this film a lot. The fact that they had to travel out to some random road to hail cars that would maybe drive them into town was just crazy to me. The first one I thought was like, I was like, maybe it was like a busing thing, like these cars just drive back and forth to pick up people who need to travel from town back and back home. And then I realized that these were just random people, like they were literally hitching, and that threw me entirely. And I was going to ask about what culture we were talking about specifically, because of the way that they wrapped, they're carried things in like huge, very, very beautiful cloths that looked very sturdy. But they would like wrap things in their cloths, and then they would, put it around their shoulder and tie it in a knot, and just the not even really, I guess, thinking about it with my Western perspective of what would I do if I didn't have bags as an option, or to go so long having something so culturally specific to the point where you're like, I don't need to improve this. We've already got the best way of doing this here.
Yeah.
I just... They would haul those retablos just on their backs, wrapped in cloth. Just...
In full suit.
Yeah, question, I guess, when was this movie supposed to be set?
Around modern times, modern enough. I mean, modern enough that they have tourists.
Well, yeah, but I guess I assumed that could be...
I was assuming it was close enough to present day.
Interesting.
I mean, because you're thinking... You've got to think about it, you're dealing with ultra rural communities that are then essentially hitching rides into what is then the equivalent of, like, Peruvian Dayton.
Well, yeah, but I guess I was assuming that this movie has a very, it could be any time kind of feeling to it.
But I'm assuming that it's close enough to modern times.
Okay. Because it felt pretty timeless, but that's why I was thinking, I wasn't thinking, I guess, modern, I wasn't thinking, like, we were in, like, the 50s or something, but I was definitely thinking that, like, this could solidly be some version of, like, the 70s, but, like, Peru's 70s.
Perhaps. There was one of the cars that made me feel like it was more recent.
Okay.
It was a car that I felt like was a giveaway in some sense, but I can't remember which one.
That's okay. I wasn't looking at the cars at all. Oh god, that one scene when they like got into the back of that car and on that really bumpy road, and I was like, it's gonna break the Retablo. I was like so anxious about it. Like they hit a huge pothole, literally pulling off. I was like, oh. Just fascinating film.
Going back, I think one of the things that's so very particular, I want to touch on 2 points with this that you brought up. You brought up Segundo as a character and how interesting he is and his very particular point of view. And you also brought up how you could pretty much watch this thing without the subtitles and probably still understand verbatim, everything that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they set that up almost perfectly with our introduction to both Noe and Segundo when it's Segundo listing off what everyone was wearing in perfect detail.
Yeah.
And we're establishing, I think, something really important immediately about Segundo as a character, which is that he is watching closely.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. And I think that it's sort of that artist's call, to observe.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because he does have to be so observant when he is, on the clock, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I think that puts him into a place of being just hyper-observant about everything around him. And so I think that the reason the movie works so well is because we have so many, 1, beautiful long takes, and 2, such a perfect link in to Segundo's perspective that we regularly and routinely don't have to really wonder, what the emotional dynamics are because he's paying such close attention to everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he's so keenly aware. And that's also why he makes his tragic discovery that then starts to set him down this question of, who am I? Am I like my father? How much am I like my father?
Am I like this, my friend?
Yeah, am I like oh god, Mardonio? His like, I'm gonna fuck this chick, like ultra mask,
Yeah, this
But
like,
it's also a front, he's
is.
a scared little boy in a lot of ways.
It is. It's this kind of like, again, this movie was very like comfortable, but like, I guess because also like, even here in the outskirts of Peru, there's still that kind of kid, you know, who's gonna be a rapper one day or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's gonna get out of this town.
Well, I think that it's also funny that you mentioned that. One of the thoughts that I had when I was thinking about this movie earlier today was that in a lot of ways, I think that this movie very much touches on all the other movies that we've watched so far this month, particularly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this really emotionally heavy, you know, circumstance that changes all the dynamics of your life, hitting you at this tender transitional age.
Mm-hmm.
The question of identity and who you are, questions of masculinity and love, you know, and tenderness, and I think that it's really interesting that you see so much of the same textures across all of the stuff that we watched this month, really culminating very nicely into this movie that was, again, very, very complex, very heartbreaking all of the time.
Oh my gosh, yes. This movie made me cry, and you know me, like I'll cry about stuff, but movies have to like really hit a chord for me to just be like boo-hooing, you know? And the tears just started to flow in this movie. Like, it really hit some chords. You know, this movie is absolutely beautiful. I think that everybody should watch this film. I'm really glad that I watched this film.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to touch on with this movie was Catholic art. So,
Yes.
How familiar are you with Catholic art?
I guess not very. You know, I guess a lot of like medieval art, and like Gothic structures and stuff like that, but not really, I guess, the art form specifically, because I didn't grow up Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
So, really just, I guess, I didn't really immerse myself in rigid Christian art.
That's fair. I mean, art obviously has a lot of linkage back to religious tradition in general, especially in a Western context. And, I mean, you look at especially the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church spent, you know, years acquiring an incredible collection of art. Mm-hmm. That's why Rome is the way that it is because of the Catholic Church commissioning and creating all of these.
Yes, and they commissioned like Leonardo.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And Michelangelo and people's, you know, all of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to come down and paint the Sistine Chapel.
And so, to your point, yes, there was the patronage was the system that it was typically referred to as.
Thank you.
And, but when I saw the Retablo, you know, the first thing that I thought very particularly of was triptychs, which are another sort of similar idea conceptually. They don't typically have the layers to the same degree, but there are these threefold panel pieces that have these paintings on the inside typically, and some of the things that they're housed in are very elaborate, you know, with all this ornate drawings. And so the presentation of them and the opening of them really made me think very much of triptychs, which also then, of course, tell their own story. And the ones that he was making for the families sort of tell the story of the family, you know, with the family's saints, you know, and the image of the family itself, of course, as well. But then they also had the ones that were in the shop that included, you know, the depictions of certain religious scenes, You know, some of them pretty graphic and grisly and gruesome. And so I found that was the other thing that I found really breathtaking and stunning about this film was the very particular attention to detail surrounding the artwork itself. And I thought that it was really stunningly presented. It has that same sort of visual satisfactory feel as watching the toy get repaired in Toy Story 2.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
No.
there's nothing better than watching a craftsman at work.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, you know, to your point, the art is just phenomenal, and you can tell that it takes so much work. And I honestly, you know, again, another thing where I was like, I don't really know how he's getting these materials. And this movie was like, well, just sit back and we'll tell you how he's getting all of these materials. And the fact that, you know, they were growing potatoes in their yard so that they could use some of them to make the dough that was needed to make the people and the structures of his retablos. And it just this ever unfolding mastery of this art form. And that I really just enjoyed that really simple scene where the son is trying to make his own figurines, and we don't even get to see what he's doing because that doesn't matter. Again, it's another one of those moments where like we don't get to see the thing because that's not the point of the scene.
Yeah.
You know, the point of him meticulously painting the inside of the box is not so that we can see the inside of the box and what he's painting. It's to see this attention to detail. And I loved that scene of the son really, like, you know, just kneading his dough as fast as possible and like trying to do, you know, so quick, so, you know, very sloppy work, and just watching his dad's face try really hard to like let him make his mistakes and, you know, and hold back. And then there's just this moment where he just goes, okay, we've hit it's been too much now, and now I'm gonna step in. And it's just beautiful. And I loved their connection. I loved their this father-son relationship, and the fact that it is tested by his father's I mean, we really aren't very specific about whether or not he is like gay, but he has been with men.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like, you know, what does that mean in a rural town where like homosexuals are deemed like to be devils?
Yeah.
You know, and his battle of what that means for his relationship with his father and how he feels about his dad, especially after they were so close. And it's just such a beautiful movie.
Well, and it starts to shake this foundational question in him. Mm-hmm. You know, of am I? Do I want to have sex with women? I don't know.
Because that's also, you know, that wasn't really what he was focused on.
No, that had never been a question for him in his life.
And then this door gets opened, and then he just gets flooded with all of these what ifs.
And no one to talk to because the town is steeped in this rigid tradition, and also devastatingly, he loves his mother profoundly, dearly, but he just isn't that close with her.
Mm-hmm.
And so he can't really go and talk to her. And I think it's also interesting, both of our parents are kind of shown as being afflicted in a way. The father, of course, is afflicted with alcoholism. Mm-hmm. And the mother has the physical issue of the limp.
Mm-hmm.
And neither of them are necessarily fully complete people in their lives. Mm-hmm. And in this relationship. And so I think that's also another really just fascinating element of the film. And just, again, I think the complex layering of it, it's really, really incredible stuff. And I think that's also why it does manage to, again, going back to the way that it touches on so many things, is it opens up those doors honestly. And then
Yeah.
it presents through the culture the honest lens of why it's a difficult question and a difficult problem for all of our characters involved. And how there's really no easy answer to any of it at a certain point.
But also, I think that the fact that, again, I guess back to the universal.
The universality of it.
Oh, I was right the first time.
Mm-hmm.
The universality of it is this kind of, I think that everybody is tested by the same kind of things, in this film. It is these people in a rural community being confronted with homosexuality and what that means here. And I think that you could take that story and you can put it anywhere. And I think that that's important. It can't just feel like this is somebody else's problem or whatever, because it's not a problem, but we need to address the fact that people do think that it is a problem. And we can't just be like, oh, well, it's just people over there. No, learning is important. And I think that this is a great opportunity to look at something that may be uncomfortable for sure, and have an outlet that is safe to experience this. And also because I think that at the end of the day, if you're not upset that his dad gets beat up, then I don't think that this was ever going to be the movie for you.
Yeah, I don't think you were ever going to really make it this far.
Yeah. I'm honestly shocked that you made it to that part in the movie.
Yeah.
Good on you. Good on you, mate. I could talk about this movie forever, honestly.
For me, and this will be one of the last things that I say before we start to, I guess, wrap up our discussion a little bit here. It also reminded me a little bit of Mother India.
Oh, I think that's totally fair.
Some of those same dynamics of this rural, isolated family struggling to make it, to do what they need to do to survive, to hold it together, to be a family, to question and go through what that means. And for young men to grow up and try and figure out who it is that they want to be. I think that ultimately this movie ends, however bitterly it does end as well. I will say this, and this is, I guess, truly my final thought, and then I'll ask you what you think of the movie as a rating. However bitter it is at the end, and there is plenty of bitterness, I think, at the end, I think that there is also a true sweetness as well.
Yeah. I completely agree, because I think that at the end of the day, experiencing tragedy can also inform, who you are and how you move forward. And I think that, the choices that Segundo makes, breeds hope.
Yeah, there's a real peacefulness at the end.
Yeah. After all of this, he picks it all up and goes, all right, now this is mine. And it's this beautiful moment. And I completely agree. I think that, it is truly better, but it is bright at the end.
So if you had to rate it out of 5, what would you give it?
I'm giving this movie a 5. I said it. This movie, like I've said countless times, truly touched something deep down in me. I have thought about this movie a lot since we watched it. And it's just it was an emotional roller coaster ride, but everything truly was honest and real, and just breathtaking, just a breathtaking experience.
No, I agree with all that. I think that I'll give it a 5 as well. It's a incredibly intimate feeling movie, and that makes every everything that happens, feel all that more successful, heartbreaking, tender. I think that the way that it manages to pull off that intimacy just does really just elevate how profoundly all of those punches hit.
Yeah.
Everyone is giving just a truly stellar performance. Blown away by the work here, really, at every level, and so I definitely think that it's one that if you haven't seen, definitely check it out.
Yeah.
It's great visual storytelling as well.
For sure, just on every level, I think that this movie is a work of art.
Yeah. No, truly impressive. Moving on, I guess for our final little bit, we'll talk about some sturf. First things first, the trailer came out for a new M. Night Shyamalan movie, Knock at the Cabin. Is that what it's called?
I think so. Gosh, M. Night, you're so bad at naming things.
But it's got Jonathan Groff. Yeah, and Dave Bautista. Yeah.
And Rupert Grint.
Oh yeah.
Ron Weasley himself.
Woo.
Somebody is excited that Ron Weasley is in this.
All
it
right.
doesn't.
Yeah,
there we go. It doesn't have to be you.
No, but overall, I thought it looked interesting. It looked like an M. Night movie. It's M. Night doing a home invasion story. I'm not sure if he's done a home invasion story yet.
Not that I can think of.
No, not really. He's done some other stuff, but I don't think he's really touched home invasion horror yet. What did you think of the trailer?
Gosh, I felt like we saw too much.
I feel like we actually didn't really see that much.
Well, I think that, I guess, if I thought that just seeing them inside, I felt like just leaving it as this, like, unknown person and just, like, Dave Bautista's voice and maybe the hand was, like, enough. You know what I mean?
I think it's going to be a real question. I think that the tease of the movie and the reason that they are allowing us to see them in the house is that it's going to be a game throughout the entire movie of one, is there really going to be an apocalypse? And two, how are we going to either get out of it or subvert the apocalypse? And I think that that's why obviously, I think there's going to be some sort of there has to be an M. Night twist. He's obviously, I think, setting us up for one.
Well, I have no idea what the M. Night twist is, I guess, because
plot twist, they're trying to, hear me out, test pharmaceuticals.
And the only way to do that is on an island that rapidly age. Wait, I'm getting further from it.
No,
No, I guess what I was going to say was that I thought that, we get that, like, sneak of the person underneath the hood. And I was like, that doesn't feel like any of the people that we just saw.
Oh, I thought that was the woman with a bag on her head.
Oh, see, I was thinking that this was a thing that they kept doing to people who came to this cabin, that they were just constantly doing this in, like, a loop.
Well, maybe that'll be the twist.
I was thinking that this was kind of like a Saw thing, where it's like, want to play a game?
Mm-hmm.
And those who hear the call, maybe they've all been survivors from the game. Themselves,
That's an interesting idea.
I mean, who knows? It's M. Night. It could be literally aliens. For all I know.
Guys, it's the Surprise Signs sequel. I'm calling it now. It's secretly Signs 2.
That's right. But it also was like, I'm cabin in the woods, but I'm not.
It is very much pulling on funny games. That's definitely one of its big inspiration points.
Okay.
Which you have not seen yet.
No, I've never seen Funny Games.
It's a big inspiration point for us as well.
Okay, I get that. I have no idea where this thing is gonna go. I'm sure that it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun time. They all looked like they were on crack cocaine, and that little bit that we saw them, they were all very jittery. Mm-hmm. So I wonder what that means.
Dave Bautista's head had every wrinkle in it.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
He was tense, like at every bit.
M. Night said, all right, I've got the biggest actor in Hollywood. Literally, look at his scale next to everybody else. I'm going to have him shake hands with this tiny little child. It's going to be art to watch his big hand engulf her little hand.
As a little bit of other news, we don't have the trailer yet. It's coming out, I think, October 6th.
Okay.
We're getting our first look at the highly anticipated Chris Pratt starring Super Mario Brothers.
No.
Yeah, first trailer's coming out. We better hear that damn voice.
The voice is going to be his regular voice. And I'm calling it now. I'm calling Chris Pratt, talking like Chris Pratt, like he does in everything else that he does. He can't do an accent. I'm pretty confident of that. Because he was also in that Disney movie that was just fine, about the magic being out of the magic world.
Oh, yeah.
Where he just talked like himself the entire time. So I'm actually imagining that they're going to be like, they're going to Wreck-It Ralph this whole thing, where it's just going to be talking. And it's going to be like, hey, I'm Mario. No, not that Mario. And they're going to make a joke out of it.
Yeah, that's very possible.
I mean, honestly, they cast Chris Pratt. If they wanted somebody who could do even remotely the least stereotypical Italian voice, they probably should have cast somebody Italian.
No. Beyond that, the only other thing that I was going to bring up always, of course, is what we've been watching. We did watch Barbarian. I'm not sure if we had watched that last time or not. But we did watch Barbarian. It's a great movie if you haven't seen it yet.
Oh, right, because we said that we wouldn't tell anybody what it was about. Yes, that is right. Okay, so the only thing that we watched since then
is Bride of Chucky.
Yeah, that wasn't Retablo.
We've also been watching a little bit of TV here and there. We watched the season finale of Harley Quinn, of course, season 4.
Was that really the season finale?
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's already over.
Yeah, and they left you on the cliffhanger.
Every time.
Good season.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked this season a lot.
Different.
Yeah, but also it totally works, because I think that the kind of the whole message about the season was like, change happens, but it doesn't have to be a bad thing.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And I think that, it's this I like the fact that they lean into the fact that she is a psychiatrist. They really like psych the whole thing up. They're like, all right, sure, she's Harley and she's gonna knock some heads, but she's also gonna have random therapy sessions and check in with people.
Yeah.
But I like it. I think that it's I think that it's something that I would have probably written if I could write a damn thing.
No, I did really enjoy it quite a bit. But that's about honestly all that we've been watching. I finished playing The Last of Us Part 1 again.
Yes, you did the remastered. It looks phenomenal.
And that's truly all that we've been doing, really. I guess that's all that I have for the dear people. Dear, do you have anything that you would like to say to the listeners?
Things that I want to say to the listeners are as follows. I've got a secret mission for you. It's called...
Is it email us a question?
It is. How did you know my secret message?
It's your usual mission for the people?
Well, it's still not working, so I feel like, like learning a script, repetition is key, so if they just keep hearing me say it, then maybe one day,
one more dog,
we might actually get somebody to email us a question. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy, you know. Just if you do it, then I'll know that you're actually listening to the entire episode and have made it to the end, because you will have been the only person to get a gold star today.
Ha. And those top the gold stars, you know, they don't come easy.
That's right. You know, we're talking like old school rules, where it wasn't just participating got you a gold star. You actually had to do some work. So yeah, you know, that's my mission to the people. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. You know, whatever. We can't be friends, but that's fine. I'm kidding. But as always, you know, thank you for listening, and I'll stop badgering you about the fact that nobody does their homework anymore.
No, but yeah, check out last week's episode if you haven't already. Of course, beyond emailing us at thefilmbudspodcast@gmail.com, you can, of course, check us out on Twitter at thefilmbudspodcast, and on Instagram at thefilmbudspodcast. On Twitter, we're actually at filmbuds.
Honestly, just type in Film Buds
You'll find us, yeah.
anywhere, and you'll probably be pretty close to it.
Yeah.
You made it to here.
Yeah.
So...
But yeah, and of course, be sure to tune in next week when we do our last episode for Hispanic Heritage Month.
Yes.
And get ready for October. It's going to get spooky, y'all.
Ooh.
Thank you guys, as always, for listening. We'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.